welcome to Marc's Noon Show today. I'm so glad you guys are joining me. I'm excited because I have one of the hottest podcasts out in the industry. I love it because it's some grown folks. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people. There's a lot of knucklehead podcasts. People acting a damn fool. Ain't talking about nothing. But my next guests are really, they're doing a mature, sometimes off the chain, very candid Gina podcast. They have great energy. You don't know. You'd be like, damn, are they kicking it? Because they be sounding like they, you know what I'm saying? They got the little intimate. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And I think they do this on purpose. I'm talking about the G Lounge, and it's Gina and the Franchise. Welcome to the show, guys. How y'all doing?
Good, Mark. It's so good to talk to you. I'm so glad. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, let me tell you something.
Great to be here.
So, Franchise, I have not met you in person. I'm looking forward to it. Let me tell my little Gina story because this is important. Now, Gina, let me tell you the kind of sister, when you say sister, Franchise, that's when a brother about to break it down. When my sister. Right. But so Gina, I interviewed Gina when I was working in New York. And Gina, I interviewed her about her book. She's a genius. She's an author. She's a whole bunch of things. And so at the time we were talking about her book and diversity. And Gina, see, in the black world, and of course, everybody's listening to this show, black, white, red, brown, doesn't matter. But in the black world, there are a lot of people say they're gonna do something, but they don't do nothing. Gina Humber, I was talking to Gina. We did the interview, went well. She was amazing. Her book's amazing. She's a great guest. And I told her, Franchise, about a business that has since gone under, sadly. I was telling her about a business that I was doing. And and Gina had her wallet out, Franchise, that moment. Bam, I got some money, Marc. I'm trying to do something with it. Let's go. That was the first time we talked about it, first time we met. She was like ready to go. And I just thought that was so awesome because, again, people talk about it and say they're going to do it. Gina had the money ready to go. And, it was just like, I think that says a lot about who she is, though, because she's trying to move the culture forward and not just in theory, but in reality. So let's give a hand clap for Gina on that, Gina. You go ahead, girl.
Aww.
And then
hand clap.
And then back then, because if people who follow me know I've lost weight, I'm like Luther, big Luther, little little Luther, big Luther. I'm big Marc, little Marc. I've gained weight and lost weight so many times. I've been online working out and doing this. I saw Gina. She was watching. The next thing I know, she started getting up in that gym, putting it down. And the next thing you know, bam, 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 she done lost 30 pounds, looking great, traveling the world. And I was like, once again, it's one thing to talk about something. It's the next thing to do something. And lastly, with you guys, I saw when you guys first started, man, I started just looking at the, start your podcast. Y'all started adding graphics, started doing little videos, having guests, little promos, little pictures. Here's Gina with some wine. Here's Franchise looking brolic at the gym. Here's Gina with some sexy outfit on. What the hell Gina got on? Okay, well, hold on. We need to look at this picture when the wife ain't around. And so, look around, and this the G Lines podcast started really gathering steam and getting some momentum, and that's where we are right now. And this is where we are, Gina and the Franchise. So I know that was a long introduction. So Gina, tell us about yourself, and then the Franchise, tell us about Franchise. What's going on, y'all?
Oh my God! So first of all, Marc, I just love you. Let it be known, okay, that Marc is the one that started me on this whole weight thing, because Marc would be like, Gina, I'm working out. I'm like, yo, you don't need to work out, Marc. I like big guys.
That's true.
I love big
she
guys.
would say that.
And I would say that to him.
Now I'm a bigger guy. Like, thanks, Gina. Franchise. She set a brother up.
It's your fault. She set you up, man.
I'm a big dude now.
and then left you.
Right. You know how they do. You cool? And then, wait a minute. Does she got damn six packs? Oh, hell no. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gina.
Oh my gosh. So, I like big guys. So then I see Marc working out, and then I don't know what was it that kicked it off for me in terms of, eating healthy and changing. So thank you for that. I always credit you for that. And, and you're right, like what happened between the franchise and myself regarding the podcast. I mean, I had done different things regarding the children's book and activities in Harlem and community events and things to bring about Black culture, Black awareness, because I remember how it was when I was a kid. So, I wanted to capture those moments between the Black community and those, those moments of times that we got together where our kids, those kind of things. So, that happened a lot in Harlem. And then, over time, I went through kind of a metamorphosis during my second divorce. And so that metamorphosis put me in a really different place. And then, it just so happened, I happened to meet a great person in franchise, and, he would say to me, you should do a podcast. And I'm just like, nah, like I need somebody to feed off of, why don't you consider it? And so, he did. And then, like we were driving one day, believe it or not, I think we might've been in Maryland, Mark, and we were headed to the beach. I don't even know what beach we were headed to, but he'll know. And so as we were going, we were envisioning how we wanted this podcast to be. And we wanted the podcast to be about people who are over 40, living in this remix of their life that may or may not, of course, be divorced, might be married, whatever. But, they want to do things differently in their mind, their body, their soul, their spirit. And we wanted to, fuse that with our jocularity, with my foul mouth, with his practicalness, and it's funny because, Mark, like I can be very vulgar with my mouth. I could be very, of course, collegiate at times, but, the franchise is very, steadfast and steady. So it really balances out the whole show, and then, so we've had, like you said, we've had topics where we've had Dr. Miriam James come on, and she is a Black physician, and she spoke about, how this COVID is affecting us and what things we need to do. And then we can go from that to having a conversation about your exes and why the fuck are they in your lives and what's going on. Like we could go from that to that. So, and it's cool to be able to have that balance so that we're not, totally, conservative, and then we're not totally, kind of out there in the wind. It's kind of a beautiful mix of both personalities, and we've just been able to kind of bottle it, and people, have really come to appreciate us as a team, as a podcast, as the co-host and the host, so yeah.
I love it. Agreed. And so
the
franchise, give us a take on, give us a little bit about your background, franchise, because again, I know Gina intimately. What about you?
Well, so I live in Texas, and I work in the criminal justice field. I've been in the criminal justice field for over 20 years, and working with juveniles specifically. So I've always had an interest in helping the kids through the system and things like that, school system, things like that. But I've never been interested in teaching. So a few years ago, me and a partner of mine established a publishing company that writes children's books. So that's kind of where Gina and I, we have a mutual friend who's an author. I happen to publish my company published his book, and then Gina knows the guy, and we kind of had this mutual connection there. We started having conversations. And then I've also been in the last probably 5 years or so in and out of the podcast game. But because of my book company, I did a lot of podcast interviews, and I would do the interviews, and then they would invite me back, not to talk about the book, but just to be like a guest co-host or something like that. So I enjoyed doing that as well. And so when Gina and I started speaking, I told her, because, she already knew I was doing podcasts. And I told her, I said, you know what, you would be really good at this because you can talk for hours. You don't even need a co-host. I mean, you could basically, not everybody's good at monologuing, but Gina is great at monologuing. So I said, hey, you should do this. Like, really, you should do this. And then, like when we had the conversation, it really kind of morphed into, well, I can do it, but I would like to have, some assistance. I don't want to just jump out there on my own. She, like Mark, she like to pull people with her. You know what I mean? Like, she want to be the only one out there on a ledge.
And she will take you on the ledge.
Some people. Yeah, you're going to come with me. So I was like, okay, because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, you're in New York, I'm in Texas. Like, okay, I dealt with podcasts that were local that didn't necessarily work out. So I was like, I don't know how this New York, Texas thing is going to work. But, like, I think that the one thing about Gina and I that we have come to align with is just this idea of possibilities. You know what I mean? So we had the conversation. We talked about doing a podcast. It was a great idea. And then the doubt started setting in because of all the distance, because of how we're going to record and how we're going to do this, like all the questions. But we did get to a point where we said, you know what we're going to focus on is how we can do it, not the barriers and not the challenges. So how are we going to do this? Fast forward now, we got 20 something shows with close to 4,000 listens, and we've done some traveling, and then we've done some, we've done a lot of different things. And I'm just looking back like, damn, we did all that.
Right. And you know what? You guys are ahead of the curve. I think always remember that. And again, this is the new way things are done. And you guys happened to hop on it before it kind of broke open, and it's still early, but the great news is you guys are really ahead of the game. And so, from the it used to be these platforms, as somebody who, has been in on the platform, radio or whatever for 30 plus years, getting on the platform was the challenge. Now we have our own platforms,
right.
And you already have put in the sweat equity that you put in is yours, like you said. And so when people, next year, whenever somebody's like, we're trying to do so-and-so and so-and-so, do you guys have any followers? You're like, yeah, we got 20,000 followers. It's like you have, and all you need to do, then you get a sponsor, and now it's like, well, who do you have? Well, you control your own destiny. And I think, again, you guys are ahead of it. Now, what I love about the combination now, the franchise, let me tell you something. Gina Humber is a handful, okay? She is a lot. And I just love the fact that, and it's weird. I don't even know how you guys found each other, because you got a person. First of all, you got a pretty girl. So pretty girl, right? Confident pretty girl. Throw in New York, okay? Throw in New York. And then, and it's talk about intelligence. She's a brain expert. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Who's a damn brain expert? So she probably is a little crazy too, because that kind of intelligence makes you, because you ain't gonna really fool no brain. Like she knows how the brain works. So you can't really come weak. I remember the first time we went to lunch and I picked this weak place, and Gina was like, "What? What's going on? What? This ain't what? No, we ain't going here. Let's just go over here." Because I was like, okay, I was, but so what I'm saying is Gina knows where she wants to go, and so that kind of strong-willed person, and then you throw on top of the New York piece. But I love the fact that you're a strong brother, but you're not. You're a what they call the velvet hammer. You know what I'm saying? You the kind of brother, you ain't got to. You don't have to demonstrate.
Indeed.
You don't have to demonstrate. You can let Gina go do what she do. You know, have to say what she go. Talk that talk. But then you'll come back with a more probably practical, less emotional, but still heartfelt point of view. And then Gina has also, but also on the other side, Gina also has a soft side. Don't let the little New York, all that boastful side fool you. At the end of the day, she's a sweet person, and she, and so all these dynamics. Also, though, the funny part about it is, I think the irony to me is that Gina's actually a little bit more, like you said, going on the ledge. She's probably more risky. I bet you get more complaints about Gina than franchise. And the thing about it is, if I'm honest, Gina, I think a lot of women aren't confident. A lot of women aren't comfortable with your confidence in yourself. I can imagine that. Is that a real thing or not necessarily? I would imagine that, because a lot of women aren't confident. So it's almost like, you know what I mean? The way you feel about yourself, I can see someone being like, I don't know. What's your take on that?
Well,
or maybe I'm wrong on that. I could be wrong on that.
know what it is, Mark? It's like when someone sees you, like how you're seeing me and how the franchise sees me. It's always like never how you see yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, it's like, okay, yes, pretty, yes, intelligent. You know, and I always think, am I confident? Do I come off confident? Like, I know I'm a cocky ass. You know what I'm saying? And so that plays a part in it. That plays a part in it. But what I think I do for women, because, you know, we looked at our podcast in terms of demographics. There was a time franchise was like, listen, we have more men because they're all coming to see you. But it wasn't true. It wasn't true. We really had a balance between men and women. What I think is that, at least what I hope, is that what I encourage women is to find their own voice, you know, through whatever confidence that you might see within myself, you know, to find your own voice and be able to stand on it. And even if you happen to fall, you know, that's cool. That's a part of the whole fucking journey, you know, to fall and then get back up. You know, to be a woman who's okay with their sexuality, their femininity, their godlike power is a very, you know, important thing for all women to get. But, you know, you got to speak into the little girl. You know, you got to speak into the little girl and let them know how beautiful, how accessible, how powerful they are. And maybe that's the blessing of me being an educator, is that, you know, not just to be able to teach children, but to teach adults, and most of all, and importantly, myself. And what I like about the union between myself and the franchise is that we're always like ascending. Like we're, you know, like if I think about the two of us, I think of a very kind of psychic kind of two people in terms of how we interact. And you're absolutely like dead on, you know, like I think in our dynamic, I'm more of the risk taker. But the beautiful thing is if I say to him, come on, let's go. He's like, okay. You know?
Yeah, I got to analyze it for a little bit, but not too long.
Well, franchise,
you can't look at it too long.
Franchise. I thought it's interesting. Now, you know, of course, franchise is in much better shape than I am. But the other day, man, you posted something, and I had to laugh because I said that's interesting. It's like, because I identified with the picture. You were doing like the Incredible Hulk picture. You look like you look brolic, like you're about to tear something up. And it was kind of like, It seemed like that was not your normal image, but it's there. But it's there. And I thought about myself. I think, you know, people always see me as, you know, I'm a family man, nice guy, you know, huggable, lovable type guy. But underneath that, in addition to, you know, someone who really does enjoy working out and really like, you know, looking at my workout partners have always been trainers and cats who are doing it on a certain level. When people see me in that, when they see me in that realm, they almost are shocked. Like, oh, I didn't know, you know, I thought Mark was just a fat dude. I didn't know he was into, and so not that you're a fat guy, but it seemed like that kind of personality part, that kind of like almost madman side, it seems like you tamp that down. And I think that's just security. You don't feel like you don't have to lead with that. But what's that about?
Right.
And you're in a field where you kind of, you know, I mean, you have to deal with that, I guess, every day. Is that a decision, franchise, that you made, that you're going to be kind of the kinder, gentler guy and put this side, you know, work or whatever? Or, you know, was it a decision? You know, are you conscious of that, or you're not even conscious of it?
You know what? I'll tell you like this, Mark. I think at this point, you know what I'm saying, I'm 45 years old. You know, I have a pretty good idea of who I am as an individual. And I think that what happens is we wear a lot of coats. We wear a lot of hats, and we cover ourselves all day long with our roles, parents, you know, husbands, wives, teachers, like probation officers, judges, whatever. We cover ourselves with all of these robes all day long. And I think that last decade or so, I've been doing a lot of work to make sure that I take things off and uncover myself, you know what I'm saying, and make sure that I don't lose who I am as a person. So in doing that and being, you know, introspective, I realized that I have different aspects of my personality, you know what I'm saying? Like, if I've been in my job for 20 years, so the professional side, Francis, which is my name that I was given, Francis is the guy that is the professional. He's a prim and proper. He doesn't use slang. He doesn't cuss when he's on the job. He's the guy that has the ultimate respect, and everybody respects his experience and expects his work ethic. Like, that's who he is. I don't necessarily like that's the guy that combs his picks his afro out and pats it down and presents with a shirt and tie all the time. When I'm not at work, I don't have to be that guy. You know what I'm saying? So I don't have to transfer that personality to my personal life. I don't have to transfer that personality to the gym or to the podcast or whatever. I can actually be who I'm supposed to be in those particular areas. You know, so when I post a picture of me hulking or something like that, I'm letting people know, hey, this is another aspect of who I am. You might not see it all the time. Those who know me know that person, but those who might not know me, this is a glimpse into the window of who I am sometimes. You know what I'm saying? If you listen to me on a podcast and you see me at work and you see me in the gym, you're probably going to see 3 different people. You can be like, who is this guy?
I love that, yeah.
But the fact is, you know, we all have, and I think I'm at the point where I am more comfortable. And actually, I think the shirt that I had on that day in that picture was freedom. You know, and yeah, so I have the freedom right now to show more of who I am versus in the past. In the past, you know, I would kind of control who I showed people. You know, but right now I'm not necessarily concerned about controlling that anymore as much as I did before.
And so, you know,
I love that.
I know.
love that.
And so, Gina, similar to you, Gina, like you said, when we first met, you were a few pounds heavier. And when I was talking about it, we went to lunch, and so I was like, I don't know, I'm trying to. She was like, yeah, get what you want. Don't be worried about all that, whatever. I love the fact, Gina, that you were so confident in who you were. You know what I mean? And from the pictures you took on Instagram or on social media to how you moved to how you walked into a room. Having 3 daughters, I'm always like, oh, my God. Like, when I see women like you, you know, I'm always like, where did it come from? You know what I'm saying? It's like that because no matter what you say to your kids and you try to whatever, the world, the system is set up to make women feel a certain way. So Gina, you know, now you knew you were a bad chick before the weight loss. And so I know now, franchise, you can't say nothing to her. But Gina, where did that confidence come from, Gina? And was it real? You know, were you as secure as, again, if you ask me, I'd say yes. But, you know, how did you get that, Gina? And did you always have it?
No, like I have to thoroughly admit and I think, Mark, you know, and I definitely know that the franchise knows that I actually am uncomfortable when people talk about, like, my looks. So I make a really strong effort in letting people know, you know, like I have 2 master's degrees, like there's some intelligence here. I think what happened for me growing up was that, you know, the emphasis was on how I looked, right? And so that opened up doors, but what I knew was it would only open up doors for so long. You know, at some point you yourself had to be a person that surpassed just what the outside looked. You know what I'm saying? And so then what happened for me was I began to develop who I was, and that became the confidence. So, I mean, even now, you know, close people will know that, you know, when people are even contacting me on Instagram or Facebook and they're like, oh, you're so pretty, or oh, you're so that, I don't tend to respond to them. I'd rather respond, you know, in regard to a discussion that we have. Or, you know, I'd rather respond to a topic about politics. You know, even when I was doing Sirius XM in terms of going on and talking about politics, and even on your show, you know, when we talked about, you know, politics as it relates to diversity, as it relates to, you know, this whole kind of spectrum in terms of ethnicities and religions and those kind of conversations. Like, I want people to know I'm from that. And I think a part of me, you know, kind of rises up when I see that, you know, people tend to, oh my God, you're so, and it's like, listen, cut the bullshit, okay? Let's have,
what else you got?
Let's have a conversation, because, you know, I've been through that world of the looks, you know, because like I said, don't get me wrong, like, it has opened up doors for me, but at the end of the day, you've got to have something more than that, you know. And I remember telling, you know, franchise and, you know, other people who are very close to me that, when I used to date people, it was just like I was just on their arm, and I wanted to be more than just this arm piece. I wanted to be a woman who could be able to have a conversation. I wanted to be a woman who, when you walked in a room, you noticed, not just because of how I looked, but the energy that I was bringing out. And that energy had to be something about love and compassion and peace and joy and happiness. And that's what I wanted people to connect to. And eventually that's what happened. I mean, even Mark, between you and I, that's what happened. Our energies are so cool, like we definitely took on a big brother, sister kind of role, and it's because of the energy, and you hope that people see past the outside and get to that inside of you, which is, why I love the franchise, why I love our podcast. There's this energy between us, like as you were talking in the show intro, of what people see between us. And so again, it's this energy, and that's what's confident about me. You get what I'm saying? What's confident about me is the energy that I exude, and the energy I exude is not just about myself, but also empowering anybody who comes to me. And if you're not about that energy, if you're not about that vibe, then listen, I'm not the person to talk to.
That's so
and you
interesting.
know what, Mark?
Go ahead,
I
Frank.
was going to say real quick, just, one thing that I just been able to admire about Gina from a distance is that, like we do have these preconceived notions and these assumptions about, quote unquote, beautiful people, right? But I think one thing that's different about her in my experience is that a lot of women who are, who get a lot of compliments, who get wrapped up in their own beauty, they really just suck that up and that becomes something that feeds them. But I think that what I've observed with Gina that I haven't observed with a lot of other beautiful women is that she always empowers other women. Everything, if you go to her page and you read the comments, she's calling people beautiful. She's calling people queen. Like it's like reciprocated, right? So whatever she's hearing, she's giving it back out to the other women who contact her. You know what I mean? She feeds, just like she's being fed, she continually feeds people. And I think that also has something to do with why she's able to be this powerful, confident person.
Well, it's interesting because you guys are so right. And I remember when Gina, when it was first starting and was like hesitant, Gina was very conscious about something being some bullshit or not being like really like something that's helping the culture, so it was interesting. You remember when Gina did her early posts and stuff, she would be like very conscious of that. And I was just thinking to myself, she is so smart. That's smart people move right there. Like people that are really serious about giving back, serious about what am I doing? I'm not just out here I'm just out here willy-nilly. I'm trying to do something and do it right. And I just thought it was interesting.
With purpose.
With purpose, right? When it first started, when Gina was very self-conscious of, I don't know if I'm doing this right. But then, boom, you got on and started doing your thing. And it's just been amazing. So, guys, this is something that I find very interesting. And like you said, we're now at a certain age where we've kind of been through the experiences and we see other people's experience. What I'm noticing about the male-female dynamic with, I'm going to say just black people, but I guess people in general, but, since we're black, it seems like, and maybe you guys have, with your show, you've seen it or haven't seen it, there are some brothers and sisters, like Gina, you articulated it perfectly, and if I'm honest, that's my energy with women. That's why I have a whole bunch of women, not a whole bunch, but I've always had women connections because I'm not hollering at you just because you fine. I'm talking to you as a person, and that's the relationships I have. So I have relationships with real close relationships with women that have never been romantic, but it's love though. It's love. But a franchise, I've noticed some brothers don't have, if they ain't having sex with a sister or moving towards that, they don't really have relationships with women like that. Is that how big? And I'm just kind of noticing. I'm like, this is interesting. So, franchise and Jenny, you guys both can answer this. What's that dynamic about? And have you found that to be prominent? Because to be honest, I have found it to be prominent. Because you always have that conversation. Allison has it on television with a coworker. Can men and women be friends? Blah 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 blah. But I noticed some brothers don't
we
really have.
We had a show about that.
Yeah, and so, and if that is the case, does it start? I guess just with how you're raised, and either one of you guys can take it. Because number one, is that prominent? In our community, is that prominent in our community?
I honestly, okay, I'll say this. I can only speak from my experience, Mark.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that that's how I used to be. I mean, why am I spending time doing anything with a female if we ain't about the sheets after or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, that's a waste of my energy. I don't want female friends unless, at some point we can break glass in case of emergency. Like, that's the purpose of having female friends.
But where did that come from, franchise? And what you said, this who used to be, where did it start that way? Where did it come from?
Well, this is what I think. And this is just a holistic conversation and a community approach. I think that it all depends on our environment that we grew up in. You know what I mean? Like, we only do what we see. So if I only see men hollering at women to get in their pants, then I'm going to, as a young boy, say, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. You know what I mean? If I see men, like, say, if I grew up and you were my mentor and I saw how you interacted with women, I'll probably ask you, yo, Mark, you hitting that? You know what I mean? Like, how are you friends with all these females? I'm going to ask you, and then you're going to explain to me what you just explained, and then I'm going to say, oh, that's a different view. But if you think about the media, if you think about all of the stimulus that our children, and say, we're just talking about young black boys, get about men, the dynamic between men and women, it's always about sex or something like that. So, of course, when we grow up in that, watching videos, listening to music, or even in our own households, in our communities, our uncles, always talking about all the chicks they got and this and that, then that's going to formulate a certain mindset for when we start getting out there, we're going to feel like that's what we're supposed to do, So I think it's a community thing. Yeah, I think that's what it is. So for myself, I personally grew and progressed beyond that because in my mind I was like this. I'm a decent looking brother. You know what I'm saying? I could have my pick of the litter or whatever. But it got to a point where, especially when I got in my profession, you know what I'm saying? So I'm coming across all kind of women. In my mind, I was like, you really think you're supposed to sleep with all these women? Like, you work with these women. What kind of issues does that present? And, and then when I started my business and when I started podcasting and doing all this, I'm coming in contact with women all the time. And in my mind, I was like, you know what, Frank? You can't have this kind of mindset. There is nothing wrong with you having a business relationship with an attractive woman or a relationship with a woman that has nothing to do with her attraction or your attraction, that kind of thing. Like, I could be friends with a beautiful woman and it's okay. But I had to grow to that point because everything that I was shown growing up told me a different story, so I had to find my own story. You know what I'm saying?
And so, Gina, were you the victim of that mentality? Because, being attractive with guys. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Mark. Finish what you're saying.
I was saying, that being an attractive woman, was that kind of like what you ran into, brothers, everybody? You mentioned being on someone's arm and not almost being a equal partner in just us talking about stuff. Was that how, did you find that to be the case or not necessarily?
No, this is funny that we're talking about it because the franchise knows that, like, I deal with it a lot. And I deal with it, and I would think that at my age, you know what I'm saying, that it would have slowed down just a tad, but it's uncomfortable. Like, it's like we were talking about business, and a lot of opportunities have opened up with me to be able to be on maybe a show or to be on TV, and what has happened is there's always this, oh, can you see me later for dinner? Or, oh, I'd like to, and it goes back to what, we were saying, where you don't really see me, and so that's why I think I'm very turned off. Like the franchise knows, like if we have a guest come on, I got to go through, well, what are you doing tonight, or what do you have on? And it's like, oh God, not again, and so it's not, to be a woman, it's in 2020, you're still dealing with this antiquated approach of, if you look a certain way, then you've got to deal with that, because how many times do men have to deal with that one-on-one? Do men deal with that when they deal with other people's ethnicities? Is there a sense of respect there that you don't go to? And so for me, what happens is that I always feel like I always need to prove myself. You know what I'm saying? And so that becomes its own kind of, persona, and always having to kind of go outside of that. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes I'll get celebrities who'll contact me on Facebook or Instagram, and they're like, it's like, dude, I have no interest in you. Like, I get that women seem to think that you are the cat's meow, right? But being the fact that you approach me with, hi, how you doing? Like, it's such a turn off to me. It's like, it's like, hi, how you doing? I don't know. There's a COVID situation. We're dealing with Russia bringing in, like, dude, like, I'm so not the chick for you. Please go find a girl who needs some hamburgers and her rent paid, and go work that shit out with her. You know what I'm saying?
Now you sound like Corey Holcomb.
I know, that's hilarious. I've had franchise. I'm scared of you because I had the same thought. And this is interesting because I think these are, for some reason, franchise, what you just said to me, really just, because I always never, how you don't want to look at yourself. I didn't look at myself as far as like how you were raised makes you who you are. And for some reason in that moment, what you just said about your background, I thought about how I had a very, if you will, sanitary background from a standpoint of my father wasn't in my life, but my mother never dogged him. You know what I mean? My mother was a super strong, respected woman. She didn't bring the boyfriends over, whatever. I had a couple brothers who I found out were not my uncles. She said they were my uncles, but I now understand they were some booty calls. Who knew? And then the real, the men in my life were older, and they were, married. They were older and married, and they did not share. They never had those kind of off-color stories. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like, your uncle pull you aside, man, that girl. None of them did that. They were just kind of some regular guys. So I never really had that. I saw them, I saw households run by women, their wives. I saw brothers who worked, you know what I mean? So looking back, you're absolutely right, man. My perspective. So anytime if I hear bitch or I see a woman hoe or even nigga, something inside of me still always recoils because that wasn't where I came from. You know what I mean? I remember one time somebody said to me, you ain't no real man until you've been to jail. And I remember I was like in my 20s. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? And then I worked in Baltimore. And it all became clear. No, but it's like, but you're right. If you're raised on a certain environment, just like in Baltimore, I always tell this story. Well, I saw this grandmother with her child, with her grandbaby, and he was lagging behind. He was 3 years old. She finally turned around and slapped the shit out of him and said, come on. And so to that kid, when he's a grown man and he slaps his girlfriend and somebody says, that ain't how you treat women, you don't love her. He's like, what do you mean? My grandma smacked me. She loved me. It's like you are who your environment. And so with your show, I love the fact that you guys, again, you have, not the same opinion, but you have vast experience in life. And have you guys had a conversation or something about relationships that you both were kind of shocked that you learned either about each other or someone else? Or have you had a show that made you scratch your head like, okay, that was kind of shocking. I didn't expect that.
Well, you know what, Gina, I'm gonna let you. Yeah, I'm gonna let you go.
I'm gonna let you do this. Well,
because no. But I think. Okay, so I say this, Mark. I think that obviously, me and Gina have not known each other. We didn't grow up together or nothing like that. We just decided, and she's a driver, right? She's a driver. Come on, let's go. And I'm along for the ride. And so what I realized is that okay. We're doing this and I've done podcasts before. I've had these kind of connections with people before. So what I've realized is that I'm going to get to know her a little bit better, like during this process. Like there's going to be a lot of things that I'm going to learn about her in just regular general conversation. But if you think about it, what we like to create on our podcast is exactly that, a general conversation about topics that people might not necessarily have anybody to talk to about. You know what I mean? So things come up, topics that we've had. I've been able to learn a lot about Gina. She's been able to learn a lot about me just through the topics that we come up with and actually flesh out on the podcast. You know, like we've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about her, and then even post-production conversations after the podcast, we have discussions about what we talked about. Like, yo, I didn't know that such and such. Like, you know, let me a little bit get a little deeper about this, because that was really a point that I never really knew about you. So, you know, tell me more. Like that has been a vehicle to get to know her better, and vice versa, I would assume, Gina, right?
I would assume. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I think what the great thing is that the podcast, especially between a man and a woman, and you know, Mark, because you know you and Allison have these conversations, is that they're relatable. You know, they're relatable, and it doesn't matter your status. They're relatable in terms of, you know, being a person of color, being a woman, being a man. You know, they're relatable in terms of, you know, topics that we might talk about that franchise is right, that people may not generally feel comfortable with talking about. It's just a beautiful thing that we both feel comfortable talking about a mirage of different topics, so it doesn't really bother us. But I think what's really cool is we're able to have these fireside chats together, and then also have them on the podcast. And so us learning about one another is more really about us learning about ourselves, and then giving people the permission to have their own conversations with their partners or their friends or whomever, and be able to have these conversations. Like we know from our podcast, from our listeners, how they have contacted us and said, you know, thank you guys for having that conversation. We had a discussion about, you know, about being Black enough. You know, what does that mean? You know, especially me being light skinned, in terms of people, you know, what does that mean? You know, for me. And me
not being light skinned.
Right. And him not being it, you know. And so there's been you know, like we would get all these comments about, you know, yeah, you know, so if I date someone outside of my race, then I'm not Black, or if I'm homosexual, then I'm not Black, or if I'm African, well, then I'm too Black, or I'm not enough Black, or I'm not, you know. And so we would begin to explore these conversations, and then it begins to open us as a people, as a community, as a person, as a spirit. You know what I'm saying? And so we had a conversation too. We had a show about zodiac signs, and Mark is a Gemini, and franchise is Aquarius. And I know Aquarius and Gemini get along great. And
yes.
So, you know, you both are very analytical, smart people, which I love. I love to be around people who are intellectuals. I'm an analytical kind of person as it is. So that's why, you know, I was saying earlier, you can't approach me and go, hi, and put a little emoji of a hand up and somehow think that that's going to start a conversation. So our podcast or our relationship or our discussions are based upon who we are, you know, and what we're bringing is conversations that people over 40, and in my case, over 50 have, you know, in terms of what's relative to us. And what's relative is viable relationships. What's relative to us is conversations that bring about an ascension and awareness, you know, of your purpose and in your intention in this life. And at the same time, you know, joke.
Right. I mean, because look,
get cussed out.
The G Lounge podcast, you can check it out. And again, guys, you're right. And I think the cool thing about our age, and I think we got to keep it real. You guys are a little bit younger than me. But it's so funny, like with me and Allison, you know, the thing that, you know, you start to, you know, you've been together a long time. You start to notice things, and then you have the kids. You start to see some philosophies that are important, and if they're not important to the other person and you're with somebody, you can start to see what happens. Like when it goes wrong, like at our age, right? I say our age, even though you guys are a few younger, you're younger. You physically and appearance wise, there's some shit you need to do, right? There's some shit you need to do because you can no longer get away with it. When you're younger, if you got jacked up teeth, you might be able to get away with it. Our age, it turns into a serious problem, right? I was looking at, I was looking on television today. There was this beautiful couple, black couple. The wife was dark skinned, franchise. The husband was light skinned, Gina. Now the sister, franchise, her moisturizer game was on point. She was on TV. They were doing a segment. Her skin was glistening on television. And then when that camera hit them white teeth, you were like, oh, my God, she is so beautiful, right? So franchise, in my mind, I thought about this young lady who was a friend of mine, and we used to kick it, but her moisturizer game was not on point. And if only franchise, she knew how to do that. She could have scored, who knows? But she's a beautiful girl. She's beautiful inside and out. But her moisturizer game was always questionable. So she, instead of having that moisturizer, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, and as you get to a certain age, like the other day, I was talking to my friend. I had to laugh because he was trying to say something but not say something. One of what he likes to do, his habit has always been to press. He likes to press his shirts. That's something he does on Saturdays. He presses all his shirts. So, now he's on social media doing his podcast, and he always looks, I was just thinking, he always looks, sharp because he just has on a freshly pressed, buttoned up shirt. That's a very simple thing to do. And so I'm having this conversation with him, and I was like, yeah, man, he said, Mark, you should do custom shirts, and I was like, oh man, I can't really do custom shirts right now, whatever. But then after I got off the phone, what I realized was what he was saying was, Mark, your big ass needs to quit wearing T-shirts when you're doing videos and put on a shirt because it's going to make you look better on the camera. You know what I'm saying? And like, these are the little things that we all, as we get to our age, the ones who are practicing doing it look sharp, look great. The ones who don't start to lose the steam, And that's another thing I love about your podcast is that you guys, there's, that conversation and then products and stuff. I just see a whole bunch of money down the line because you're talking to a group of people, who buy up a lot of stuff.
Yes,
if it's oil, if it's hair stuff, if it's clothing, if it's whatever, if it's dentists, if it's doctors, you know what I'm saying? Candles. Like your audience are people who do stuff like that and buy stuff like that, and it becomes important. So I see what y'all doing. Y'all building $1 million podcast.
Hey, Mark, don't tell our people our secrets, man.
we have, what's funny is like we had, the G Lounge mug, right? So franchise would be like, Gina, go fill the mug, and I'll be like, what?
Hey man, I know what sells.
Yeah, Gina, I saw your mugs.
And then I'm in the bed with the sheets with the mug, like,
yes, looking all vulnerable.
It's mine.
Now, wait a minute, you got to talk to that female audience with franchise. Where you at, franchise, with your mug sales?
Yo, listen, we do everything in waves. You know what I'm saying? So the summertime's coming. Hopefully some things can be in place, and we've had some ideas. Don't worry. We working on it.
Yeah, because Gina is working it. I was like,
she's working, man.
I was zipping past the mug sale. I said, wait a minute. I stopped and said, wait a minute, Gina. Wait a minute, thighs. I think I said something. I said something about, I said, nice thigh. Yeah, go ahead, girl. That's right. Do what you do. But
pics straight though, right? Them pics was nice.
Mark, he makes me sell all the shit. He'd be like, Gina, go do it. Okay, Gina, now take this. And then I'd be like, well goddamn.
That's right. Get the merch sales up.
Hey, I'm saying, let's get it up.
So, guys, if people want to reach and get inside the G Lounge, how do they reach you? How can they get on the thing, and how can they find you?
Go ahead, Frank.
Well, we are the G Lounge. Yeah. Mark, she loves to delegate. So, so you can find us. You can find us on the G Lounge on Facebook, the G Lounge on Instagram. It's at G Lounge 111. And basically those two places. And then, you can find us individually. Once you connect with us on the podcast, then you can find us individually and keep up with everything that we're doing.
Well, guys, look, man, I've had a lot of fun. And again, I enjoy the podcast. I follow you guys. And again, once this pandemic breaks up, I think we'll have
I know, man.
Wow.
We got to. We got to. And you know, it's so important now more than ever, Mark, you know, to get together. So I can't wait to give you and Allison a hug, and I'm going to bring franchise along.
That's right. Bring franchise along. And you know what? Again,
I have my mask on.
I think, again, you guys, it's so needed, like a real conversation with black folks, not just with black folks, with everybody, but concerns. We don't really have a place where we can be real, you know,
right.
and I think franchise, just like what happened today, the reality is, we learn a lot about ourselves in these conversations that we you know, our whole life, we really don't have those conversations. Like, you know, we never really talk about, like, you know what it is, because we spend so much time protecting us. A lot of times we can't even be candid about us. You know, like I always think about that Chris Rock bit, you know, black folks versus niggas. That's a real conversation. That we can rarely ever have, though, you know, because it was like, well, I don't want to, you know, because, you know, we'll be called a certain this or that, but we really have to add, and then also another conversation, character in our community with leadership. You know, we have a character issue, right? We have a character leadership issue going on that we rarely ever talk about. So thank God we got the G Lounge, because the G Lounge, you can get yourself some wine and let Gina and franchise break it down and not even have to worry about getting in trouble at work because they said that you didn't say it.
Exactly. Hey, Mark, how much time we got? Because I got a couple of quick things I wanted to say.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, man. You got time.
Okay, so first of all, based on what you just said, I think it's really important, like you said, to just have those kind of conversations and understand the importance of those discussions. So, like, one thing. Like, for myself, like I told you, I've been going through this process of just developing myself and getting to this point where, you know, I live my life out loud and without explanation. So, you know, I was going for a job probably a couple of years ago, and they found one of my podcasts, and they asked me about it. This particular one just happened to be like a super vulgar, you know, kind of situation. You know, so there was a point in time where I was a little bit nervous, like, you know, because I don't necessarily intentionally blend my worlds. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But what I came to was that, you know what, like, at this point in life, what's for me is for me, and I'm not going to deny that this aspect of who I am lives. Like, this person lives, and he's separate from work. You don't ever have to worry about that guy coming to work. If anything, you should have more respect for me because I'm able to keep those worlds separate. I don't mention the job or nothing like that. Somebody was snooping and they just happened to search my name and they found me on a podcast talking about vagina or something. I mean, who knows? But the point, but exactly, right. But the point is, like, you know, I was like, you know what? I'm so far in my career that my career stands for itself. If a person wants to get me out of a job because of something they heard me say, then we can take up that in court if you want to go there. But I'm not gonna, you know what I'm saying, deny this particular situation. I'm not gonna deny what I believe is my art and my gift, which is my gift to gab. That's gonna be paying me money outside of this job. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna extinguish that just to be in job mode all the time. That's one thing. The other thing was a quick story I wanted to tell you about Gina and how when we first started talking. So we were first having conversations like, hey, you know, Lenny. You know, Lenny's one of the authors.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Franchise, hold on. Franchise, I want this. I got to keep this story. Hold on. Let me. It looks like my. I don't want to lose you. My phone is tripping. So hold on 1 second. Oh. I don't want us to lose this call. Hold on 1 second. Let me.
Yeah, this is a great story.
Right. It's a moment going on. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Again, we're talking to the
Gina,
G Lounge.
Don't be nervous. I ain't gonna tell no secrets.
We're talking to the G Lounge. Hold on 1 second, guys. We're talking to the G Lounge, and I do not want to lose this story because this feels like this is going to be a good one. Again, the G Lounge is available where you get podcasts. I know they're on Spreaker, and right now I'm just stalling a little bit. I'm charging up I'm charging up for this final story because. Franchise is breaking it down. again, Gina and the franchise, they're what I love about the show is really their connection. You know, they have this kind of just great chemistry, and that, you know, chemistry, that's the biggest part of any type of show you're trying to do. If you have, you know, amazing chemistry, then that's half the battle. You know, that's half the battle. But you know, again, so if you get a chance, make sure you download it. Right now, I'm actually connecting for our final story, and I think I've stalled effectively. All right, I think we're okay. So, okay, franchise, you there? Hold on. Franchise, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Oh, awesome. Okay. All right, so you will continue your story, my friend.
Okay, so and it was really a reiteration of how we've been talking about Gina and how she is and how she's a woman of power, a woman of purpose, and a woman who's about, hey, you know, what are we doing to uplift the community? So in our initial conversations, you know, it would just be, you know, I'd say something on a comment or like a picture or something like that, and then when we started having more conversations, like I would say, hey, how you doing, or whatever, something like that, and like 2 weeks would go by and I wouldn't even hear back from her. and then she might finally say, oh, I'm doing good, you know, like I'm like, girl, that was 2 weeks ago. What the fuck? I don't care how you doing now. But I guess she kind of got like she got pretty annoyed with the small talk, and then she asked me, hey, so, you know, what exactly are you doing to help to uplift children of color?
You got Genified.
I was like, what? I was like, what the hell? Hold up. I mean, I'm talking about Mark straight out of left field. She was just like, basically, like, I'm tired of this small talk. Like, if you ain't about uplifting the community, uplifting the children, or doing anything like that, especially for children of color, then there's really no need to us continue. This is how I felt, Mark. This is the energy she was giving me. If you ain't about any of that, then we don't really need to keep having these little short mini conversations. You know what I mean? So fortunately, I had an answer for her that she was like, oh, okay. You know, then after that,
I was impressed. You know,
franchise, nobody wants that cold shoulder, boy. You want that cold shoulder. You like, oh.
Nobody wants that, man. Hell no. She was ready too, Mark. She was ready to give me the cold shoulder.
Let me just say this, franchise. You pretty much got kicked to the curb, if we're honest. That your answer saved.
Telling you, man.
Your answer. If you did not hit that answer off right, like a home run, you wouldn't even be here. Gina, what do you say?
Oh my God. Wait. You know what, Mark? This is your fault, because these conversations can go on for another 3-4 more hours. Like, I have to say that it was exactly what the fuck happened. Like, he was like talking to me, and I was like, you know, no diss, but you know, I was just like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, it's hot in New York. Yeah, the weather's good. You know, that kind of thing. And how I'm sounding is how I was texting. And he's right. Like, he would text, hey, how you doing? And I had told him in the beginning, like, I'm not going to get back to your text anytime soon. And so, because I lumped him in with what I was saying, like, you cannot come to me with hi, with the fucking emoji waving hi. Like, I find that to be so disdainful. So then it got to a point where I was like, you know what, brother, what is it that you want? What are you doing for the African Americans? You say that you're working in the field of children. Well, exactly what the fuck? And when I tell you this Negro's answer had my jaw dropped, and I sat up and was like, oh,
okay, franchise.
Okay.
I love it, man.
Look, Mark, I was proud of myself. I was proud of myself that I actually had a response to what she was saying. You know what I'm saying? Like, I felt good about me.
Well, you know what, Frank? Now, like you said, we have to. I mean, that's a whole other topic. But franchise, I will say though, man. You know, do you feel like, because you know, I think you did a great job of kind of telling us about who you are, and you're right, those different layers that we have, right? And some brothers have other layers that they never really share with people, and so in that franchise, you were armed with real experience and real things that you were doing. When Gina, like when sisters like Gina hit the brothers, are they, for the most part, intimidated and or some don't have answers. You know what I'm saying? Because that seems like that's like a real dynamic too. A lot of brothers, even guys who quote unquote, are successful, when asked a hard question like that, they almost disintegrate or hate the sister or whatever. Some brothers just not prepared, or they just haven't run up against the sister like that.
Well, I'll tell you this, Mark. I think it's a combination of a lot of different things, but I think you're right. I think number one, first of all, they don't know what they're dealing with. You know what I mean? Because that "hey, how you doing" works out of 8 out of 10 chicks.
The numbers,
you know what I'm saying?
The numbers have worked in their favor.
Yeah. Look, I can have a full blown conversation. I got a full blown conversation off of "hey, how you doing."
The numbers were in their favor, so they just I got you.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if she falls into that category. So this is the thing. When she doesn't fall in that category, and she asks you a question like that, like, brothers got to be about to me. Like, I'm 45, so when I'm talking about brothers, I'm talking about brothers in my age group. When you're 20-something, you trying to figure it out, that's a different situation. But when you 45, 50, 55, like, bro, you got to be to me, you got to be about some kind of substance. You know what I'm saying? Like, at this point in life, I'm okay with you. I shouldn't even say this. I was about to say, I'm okay with you still trying to chase your rap career if you're 45. Like, I'm not giving it an age, but what I'm saying is that you also have to be about some kind of substance. Like, at this point in life, it is necessarily about, us as a community, us as a people, because we realize that at this point in life, maybe I'm 45, maybe I have some knowledge, some experience, some resources that I can, impart on young people in the community to enrich the community. I'm looking to the OGs the same kind of way, like, impart some wisdom on me as how to move as an older professional black man in this world. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's got to be about something that draws us and connects us together to empower us and to help develop and elevate us. Like, if you don't got that, if you about fresh Air Force Ones and jerseys at 45, like, a person like Gina gonna be like, all right, next, block, don't talk to me, you ain't about shit. So to me, it's all about substance.
And
now, I do want to say this because I know Mark. Wait, I have to say this.
Yes.
This is not permission, okay, for the brothers who are listening to now DM me with more than hi. I'm all set. I'm all good.
Right. Well, and I was going to say, Gina, it meant back to the original point when we talked about you and franchise, you'd agree. And the reason a sister like Gina even can say that is because if that brother is really trying to do something, she's willing to go into her pocket and help that brother out. And that's the part.
She support.
That's the part that a lot of brothers say they can't get. Or here's my experience. My experience again, because my experience is I see a lot of support out there, and so when I hear brothers say that, I think they're in the wrong circle or something's going on, because I see a lot of it. But then again, I do work in media and have been forever, so maybe my universe is different. But guys, thank you so much. This has been fun. I knew it was going to be a joy. Yeah. And look at us. We talked for a whole damn hour plus.
I was
going to play some music and we just talking.
Yap.
Just yapping. But so thanks so much, guys. Again, the G Lounge. Check it out.
Thank you.
You guys are coming. Is it tonight? Was it Wednesday? What are y'all on tonight? What's the G Lounge?
We on live tonight. We're interviewing a therapist, mindfulness and therapy.
Awesome. Okay, guys.
IG Live.
IG Live. What time?
IG Live 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks so much again. The franchise.
Thank you, Mark.
Gina, Umber. Y'all have a great
one.
one.
Enjoy myself.
Okay, I'm gonna. Gina,
Too.
I don't think you can't hear this, Gina, but I ran across this and it's so crazy. It's a song by Sting. It's called Fragile. And when I hear this song, I always think of I could always imagine Bill Withers singing it. Now in this version, Stevie Wonder's singing it. So what I do is I'll send it both. I'll send the file to you guys both, but I'm going to wrap it up with this because again, the first time Gina and I had a chance to chop it up, she told me about her connection to Bill Withers, which was really cool. Okay, guys, be good. We'll talk to you soon. All right. All right. It's on the Mark. Take care, guys. It's the Mark Clark Show. Guys, Mark's Noon Show. And again, this is Stevie Wonder covering Sting's fragile. And actually, Sting is right there playing. He's accompanying him. So check this out. See you tomorrow at noon.
Blood will flow, and flesh and still on, drying in the color of the evening sun. Tomorrow's rain will wash the stain away, but something in our minds will always stay. Perhaps this final act was meant to cleanse a lifetime's argument, and nothing comes from violence, and nothing ever could. For all those born beneath an angry star, lest we forget how fragile we are. On and on, the rain will fall like tears from the sky, like tears from the sky. On and on, the rain will say how fragile we are, how fragile we are. Tears from the star, like tears from a star. On and on, the rain will say how fragile we are, how fragile we are. On and on, the rain will fall like tears from a star, like tears from a star. On and on, the rain will say how fragile we are, how fragile we are, how fragile we are, how fragile we are. It's the Stevie Wonder